Who follow my motorcycle videos will know that I recently had a crash on my Suzuki Burgman 650 executive scooter, and as a result of that crash, the motorcycle was written off. The insurance company decided that the cost of repairs was more than the bike was worth, and the bike should be declared a total loss, or written off as we say, and they would pay out the insurance policy. We agreed on a value and minus the excess, and they paid me a sum of money. I was very happy with that. I thought they gave me a fair deal for it, and I made a video recently where I was talking about bikes that I would be looking at as a replacement. Now, at the time, there were 3 bikes that I had in mind. One of them was two of them were private sales, and one was a private sale where I spoke to the seller and something just didn't seem right about it all, so I decided not to do that deal. That was a good bike. The other 2 were located in Hobart, which if you live in Tasmania, you know, is about 200 kilometres away. And I was all set to make the trip down to Hobart to look at one of those bikes, the Honda DN01. When I was made aware by the dealership that was looking after the wreck of my previous bike, that they knew of a person who had a Suzuki Burgman who wanted to sell it. They said they knew the bike well, it was in good condition, had a heap of accessories and extras on it, and that I should go and investigate it. The gentleman who owned the bike contacted me after I gave my number to the dealer, and we agreed on a price, and I went and looked at it and we talked it over and so on, and I bought it. And that's what I'm riding at the moment. Now, I had said in that previous video that the reason that I was looking at a bike with either a CVT, that is constantly variable transmission, or the Honda DN01 has what's called a human-friendly transmission, or semi-automatic transmission. Essentially, it works like a CVT, but in a slightly different way mechanically. I said that because the cars that I drive are automatics. The other motorcycle I have, which is a Can-Am Spider, is a semi-automatic transmission. You have to physically change up, but it automatically changes down for you, but there's no clutch. And I just thought, as one less thing for me to worry about, one less thing for me to fiddle about and deal with when I'm coming to traffic lights or a roundabout or something like that. Many bikes these days have just a toe shifter. It used to be the thing that if you had a cruiser, you had a heel and toe shift. In other words, you could shift down with your toe and shift up by placing your heel on the back of the shifter. And now most motorcycles have just a toe shifter, and getting your toe underneath it and lifting it up and so on, it's just a pain. So I decided I wanted either a semi-automatic transmission like the DN01 or something similar. So this Suzuki Burgman came up with the CVT, and I purchased it. Now, the Suzuki Burgman came into production, a 650 version came into production in about 2002, and they continued to make them until about 2018. So for 16 years they made that motorcycle, or that scooter. It's a maxi scooter by definition. And in that time, they made very few changes to it. I guess Suzuki were working on the premise that if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And the original versions proved to be very solid bikes, very comfortable bikes. Initially they were quite expensive, according to some people, but they're a maxi scooter after all. You don't buy one to be going into the food delivery business, and you don't buy one because you just want to flit around town on your daily commute. You buy a maxi scooter that is anything over about 250cc because you want to travel the open roads and you want to do some touring on the weekends or on your holidays or whatever. And the Burgman is well suited to that. It has an electrically adjustable screen. It has, as I said, the CVT transmission, but it also has a manual and sports mode. In the sports mode, or the power mode, you press a button on the left-hand switch gear and it automatically gives you a few more revs if you're trying to climb up a fairly steep hill, for example. In the manual mode, you can manually select the gear simply by pressing an up and down button that is marked up and down on the left-hand switch gear. And the advantage of doing that is that when you're on the open road, you can select the 6th gear, and that will give you an overdrive and will improve fuel economy. Now, when you're driving in the city, like I am at the moment, you're probably not going to get to the speed where you require the 6th gear, so you're probably not going to get the benefit of the overdrive. But when you're out on the highway at 100, 110, and this bike is capable of doing 110 and more, that's kilometres per hour, I should say. It's capable of doing that and more. You certainly will get to the speed where you require the 6th gear and where fuel economy will benefit from doing that. So in the 16 or so years that the bike was made, the changes to it were mostly cosmetic. Early on it just had the CVT, and then later on they introduced the manual and sports option as well. They also introduced ABS to it as an executive model, but essentially the changes to it were cosmetic because there was no need to fix what wasn't broken. The bike was working well, it did what it set out to do, it competed well with other maxi scooters. In fact, it was the biggest maxi scooter for a long time, and until they stopped making them, in my view, they were the benchmark for maxi scooters. And I say that because under seat storage you could fit 2 full face helmets if you placed them according to instructions. There were 2 glove boxes, if you like, on either side of the dash. There was a lockable panel underneath which had a cigarette lighter outlet, so you could plug a phone charger into it if you wanted to. The mirrors were electrically able to be folded in electrically, so that when you were parking the bike you could fold them in and not risk them getting broken off. And as I said, the screen could be adjusted electrically while you were driving, so that if you wanted more airflow at low speed you could do that, and then when you got out on the highway and you wanted to avoid buffeting and all that sort of stuff, you put the screen up to the higher level and you would be well protected from the elements. It had a good fairing. It was belt driven and had two discs on the front wheel and a single disc on the rear wheel. And overall, I thought it was a pretty good bike. And when this one became available, I didn't think twice about wanting to buy another one. I just wanted a comfortable bike that would take me around town when I wanted to. And as you'll see in this clip, and I think there are 7 more clips in this series to follow, I rode around all parts of Launceston, some urban like this, some country roads and some on the highway, and it handled it all very well, comfortably, easily. This particular bike that I have, you can't see all of this as I'm talking to you, but I will do a video where I do a walk around later on. But this particular bike, as I said, has good under-seat storage. It also has 2 side cases which are removable, and that's important because it happens that the left-hand one, behind the left-hand one is the flap for the fuel tank, so you've got to take that case off every time you fill up with petrol, which is a bit of a nuisance, but it's quite easy to do. But it has 2 side cases and a very large top box as well. So if you were seriously thinking of doing some serious touring, even 2 people, you could pack a weekend's change of clothes in the side cases and the top box and set off comfortably and have a weekend away on this bike, and not have any fears about whether the bike would take the load, whether you would be comfortable when you were doing it, whether you were going to be buffeted by the wind. I think if you were the passenger, you're going to be well protected from the elements in this bike, and you're going to enjoy the ride. Well, that's enough of a sales pitch. I'm not trying to sell you this bike, I'm just telling you why I bought this particular one that became available and passed on the Honda DN01. The other bike I was looking at was a Gilera Piaggio MP3 500, and I decided not to, or I didn't go and get that. It has the advantage of having the 2 wheels on the front, and also had storage under the seat and a top box, but I decided not to get that because I didn't want to ride down to Hobart first of all to look at it, and I felt, well, when this bike became available, the one that I'm currently riding and talking about, that is the Suzuki 650 Burgman, I decided I would buy that bike. Now what I'm doing in this clip is riding around Launceston, so it's a Sunday afternoon. It's Sunday the 30th of March, and I'm just riding around Launceston, and it seems as if I'm riding aimlessly, and in a way I am, just sort of getting my feel for this bike, because with all of those extra bits of luggage on the back, it's a little different to get used to the handling. It's not markedly different, but you've just got to get used to that. But I'm just riding around Launceston and getting a bit of a feel for the bike in the urban environment, and then in later clips I'll be out on the country roads and the highway and so on. So you'll get a bit of a view of some of Launceston, and it's a business district, although it's a Sunday so there's not many businesses open. You'll get a view of some historic buildings that make up the landscape in Launceston, and also get to view various other things that make up the landscape and the environment in Launceston. And then you'll get to see some areas in the country. So at the moment I'm within the city limits, and just directly ahead of me here is Princes Square, which is a lovely little bit of park up near Launceston General Hospital. I was going to cut out all of the bits where I was sitting at the traffic lights, like this one, because I thought it's not very interesting to watch someone sitting in a set of traffic lights, but then I thought I'll leave them in, because if you're coming to Launceston or wondering what it's like in Launceston, it's like any other large city. It has a population, I think, of about 60, maybe 80,000, 60, somewhere between 60 and 80,000 in the what you would consider to be the city of Launceston, but in the area, the greater Launceston area, which includes places perhaps as far afield as Prospect, Kings Meadows, Lagana and Mayfield, there's probably about 100,000 people. So it's the second biggest city in Tasmania, the biggest one being Hobart, and I think I'm right in saying it's the third oldest city in Australia. And I say that because I think the first city would have been Sydney, and Hobart was certainly the next main settlement that would be considered a city, and it was the governor of Hobart, or governor of Tasmania at the time, Governor Arthur, I believe his name was, who sent his assistant, Lieutenant Patterson, to the north of Tasmania to investigate and start a new city. And so the folklore goes, the Lieutenant Patterson told Governor Arthur that he would only go there and do that if he were made governor of the north of Tasmania. And the governor of Tasmania said, well, that's not going to happen, I'm not going to do that, that's not going to happen. But there is a small settlement just out of Launceston, going east from Launceston towards Derby, that's called Pattersonia, which I think is named after Lieutenant Patterson, and also the bridge that forms part of the West Tamar Highway heading out of Launceston to the northwest to Riverside and Lagana and then on to Beaconsfield. The bridge that crosses the South Esk River there is called the Patterson Bridge. So, and there's a Patterson Street as well. So I think Lieutenant Patterson still got his wish and got a few things named after him. He just didn't get to be governor of Tasmania, or northern Tasmania. Just on the right here now is the Launceston General Hospital. So if you're trying to orient yourself as you're a local and you're watching this, you know where I am now. So we're coming almost to the end of the first clip, so thanks for watching. If you have any comments about anything I've said, you know what to do with them. If you want to subscribe or share or any of those, you're most welcome to do that. And I will talk to you when I'm making the next video, which will be very shortly. Thank you for watching.